I'm Tony Robin, and I'm in my studio, my summer studio in Gilboa. When I came to New York in the 60s, minimalism was king. A white box in a white room. Work so dry that your tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth, the eyes teared with boredom. A purity aesthetic had nothing to do with my experience. Meanwhile, all over the world, people made patterns and celebrated those patterns with glorious color and rich detail. In kimono in Japan, all along the Silk Road with ikat. In India, in the Punjab, Mughal paintings. In Iran, architectural decoration and tile work that then went over to Spain and Alhambra and Alcazar. In Venice, marble inlay. Northern Europe, beautiful tapestries. In America, quilts and Acoma pottery. And in South America, Inca featherwork. All over the world, people made patterns as common, as ubiquitous as the human figure. Why? In 1979, Ernst Gombrich, the great man of art history, wrote a book called The Sense of Order. I read it, I know Joyce read it, maybe some other people too. And Gombrich's thesis was that patterns spoke directly to the right brain, the Gestalt brain, the pattern recognition brain, whereas the left brain was linear, linguistic, rational. The right brain was intuitive, and it was a fundamental part of the way human beings apprehended the world. So it explains why it was universal. These patterns were normal to me. I spent my childhood in Japan and Okinawa, and my early teenage years in Iran. And we traveled all over. We went to Isfahan to see the architectural ornament, and we collected Persian carpets. I grew up with this sensibility. The 1970s were a special time. The world seemed rich. These wonderful works of art could come to us in New York. Japan House opened. The Asia Society had a new building. The Met showed the King's Book of Kings. And I went to MFA Boston to see their fabulous kimono collection. The 70s were a time when we were rich. We could go to see these things. I'd paint houses for a month in the summer and then take the next 2 months to go to the Yucatan to see Mayan ruins and their mitla patterns. Or you could go to Europe on $5 a day. It wasn't so hard to get the $5. So there was a world exposure, there was a world experience. Our traditions were all traditions. The 70s was a time also when the mathematics of tessellation became common knowledge. If you have a tile work in your kitchen, square tiles, one right after the other, one above, look rows and columns, and there's a chrysanthemum on each tile. You scratch it off and you paint in the rows. Have you changed the pattern? You've redecorated the pattern, but the fundamental structure is the same. So does that change the pattern? No. In fact, there are 17 ways to change the fundamental structure of a two-dimensional pattern. You can flip them, rotate them, stagger them, and so on. And we use this information to study and analyze the Islamic patterns that we all loved so much. The 70s was also a time of the women's movement. And the women's movement taught us all, men and women, not to be such snobs about painting, but look to the decorative arts. What might have been denigrated as women's work, look to it with loving respect. In our consciousness-raising meetings, we also learn not to be shy about our, we learn not to be shy about our loves, you know. I love Venetian tile work, and I'm not ashamed. And I'm a guy. And this misbegotten masculinity that is part of American art is self-defeating. As liberating as it was to talk about ourselves, a bigger event was when we first showed our work. Jane Kaufman talked her dealer, Tony Alessandra, in having a show called 10 Approaches to the Decorative. This was in the fall of '76. And seeing our work all together, side by side, convinced us that we really were a group and that we could learn from each other and gain strength from each other's work. You know, young artists working close together are like popcorn jiggling in the hot oil. They all look alike. You can't tell a Braque from a Picasso. You can't tell a Morisot from a Cassatt. You can't tell a Robin from a Kozlov. And then after a certain period of time, I think it's 7 years always, bam, 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 the popcorn flies off in all different directions, each with a different intention and each with a different shape. But we're all still popcorn. We're all still P&D artists, and we've never forgot where we came from.